This is an overview of the Hydrawise website, and Hydrawise is one of our favorite Wi-Fi connected smart controllers. And I wanted to give a little overview of how to set some of the basic programming. There's a few different ways to set this up, but just want to walk through some of the basic settings and give an overview using the website. This can also be done on a tablet or phone. And all of the settings across the different platforms are going to be fairly similar, but they do, some of the locations of things do change a little bit. But let's take a look at the website, which is one of the easiest places to kind of see everything comprehensively. So right now we're logged into our home screen here. And so this is giving an overview of our different zones. If we click on one of these zones, we can do manual watering. So if I click play or pause, so if I click the play button, then that's gonna take us to what they call the uh, remote control setting, where we can go in and do that. So I can water manually from the link on each one of these zones here. If one of these is watering, I can stop or pause that, and I can also get info about a zone. So let's take this zone number 1, front drip. I can get the overview of when it's scheduled to run and its watering history of when it ran last. So that's kind of the basics of our home screen. You can see, it's doing a little thing on where the weather data is in terms of rainfall in that, and that the controller is connected to Wi-Fi. So not too much from this beginning screen. There's a set of different programming options here on the left, and then there's also some links up at the top. So we'll kind of go through each one of these settings and just explore those in a little bit more depth. So let's click down into zones and programs, and this is going to be where we adjust a lot of our settings. So right now for this controller, there are 5 irrigation zones, and they're set up in some different programs. If I wanted to make adjustments to, let's say, the name or add photos of, of the zones, which would be displayed here. So I can go down here, I can delete this zone, I can add photos, I can edit the information by clicking on the pencil in terms of its name, in terms of the number it's assigned to, icon, cycle and soak, which is like for slopes and that if we want to break up our run times to reduce runoff. And then if this zone should be wetter or drier, if it was in a real hot area or if it was in a real shady area, we could globally adjust that. I personally don't use this setting too much. I adjust that with runtime as opposed to the global settings. But you can make global setting adjustments within the zone itself. Okay, so I can click cancel or OK and get out of this screen. So I could make any changes there. But the main screen that I make most of my programming changes to is the next one. So there's a tab up here for programs. So again, we're down here in zones and programs, and then up here in programs. And so this is kind of the main summary view, and it's going to show you all your different zones and what programs they belong to and how long they run. So in this particular controller, I've got 5 zones set up on 4 programs. So I've got a program for rear drip that has a couple of zones on it. I've got a zone program B for vegetable boxes, which right now the vegetable boxes aren't planted, so that's off, but that's all programmed in. I've got a program for some turf with some subsurface irrigation there that's set to come on there. And I've got a program for some existing drip that was already in place before our installation. So I've got these broken down so we can go in and we can see within here the type of program. So if we go and we'll edit using the pencil this program A here. So we've got 2 options when we go in and we start to either set up a new program or edit. We can do time-based, which you just set the days and the length and the time, and then it runs per the time settings, or what they call virtual solar sync. And what virtual solar sync does is it takes that weather data, how hot it is, the length of sunlight from local weather data, and using kind of an algorithm, it makes an adjustment on how much water the zone is going to get. So that's really where the smart part of this controller comes in, is using that virtual solar sync. So for some of the things we use that, and for some we don't. If we jump back out here, we can see on vegetables, a lot of times vegetables, they kind of like regular watering. So I've got this just set up based on a time-based schedule, where once they're ready at 6:30 every day, that's going to come on for, let's say 5 minutes, 10 minutes, something like that. But in this case, for the drip, that is set to virtual solar sync. And right now I've got this set coming on watering on even days, so second, fourth, sixth of the month, and so on. And then I can set if I want any particular days where I don't want to water. Let's say I had a lawn and I didn't want to water on Saturday. I didn't want that grass to be wet when I mowed. Then I could go in by clicking the pencil, and then I could click through and I could say water even days, but if an even day falls on a Saturday, don't water that. In normal circumstances, though, we're going to say for even days that we want it to water every potential day, and then it's going to go second, fourth, sixth, and so on through the month. So I can set even days, I can set odd days, or I can pick days of the week. So if I wanted to turn this off where I just wanted it to water 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or is happening a lot right now, let's say local water district is saying Tuesday and Saturday are the only days I can water, I can set that up as well. But so I'll discard these changes as I go, but we'll just keep that for now. So I've got this coming on at 5 a.m. If I want to split run times and do another one at 5 p.m., I could add a run time and put that on. So it's coming on a couple days a week. Things like pots or tender plants where it's real hot and we want to break up run times. So rather than watering once for 20 minutes, I might water a couple times for 10 or 15 minutes and break up run time. So that's a way of doing that. Okay. So then once I've set my watering days and my start time, I can go next. And then I'm going to pick what zones I want to belong to this program. So in this case, I've got number 3 and number 4, the rear drip. Let's say I wanted to add front drip to that. I would just check that box. I'd say, let's do front drip for 25 minutes. And then I would be set there. So I can assign which zones belong to this program. And what the program then does is it says, okay, what days of the week and what time and for how long. So those 3 different components, 3 legs of our stool. How long the zone runs, which we're setting here, what days of the week, which we've set here, and what time of day, which we've set here. So once we've set those 3, we've set the fundamentals for our zone. And then the last piece is what they call schedule adjustments. So there's also some quick links where I can use the previous and next buttons down here to jump back and forth, or I can jump from these little breadcrumbs up here. So scheduling adjustments, so this again is part of our smart watering. So we can go in and we can say don't water if it's forecast below a certain temperature, or if we've gotten so much rainfall within the last day, or if it's forecast to rain. For new landscapes, we can set this to start and stop. For the first month we want to grow in. That's what the Grow In program does. Monthly adjustments, we can set fixed percentages as well. That's more of an advanced feature. Usually I let Virtual Solar Sync do that. But you can do some additional adjustments within that using the monthly adjustments tab. Okay. So in this case, I've kind of monkeyed around with this. So rather than clicking OK and commit these changes, I'm just going to cancel out of that to keep the existing program that I have right now. Okay. So that's kind of our basics for setting up a program. And the program really is where the rubber hits the road in terms of doing our settings there. If we go into our next tab, watering triggers, so those are those adjustments that Virtual Solar Sync is making. So in this case, we're saying don't water if it's going to be less than 60 degrees, water a little bit more if it's above 77, water a lot more if it's over 90, and don't water if it's more than an 80% chance of rain. I've got the wind turned off because we're using drip here. We're not using overhead irrigation, so it's really not an issue in terms of if the wind is out and blowing. Sensors, if there was a rain sensor or a flow sensor, that we could add that and configure what zones we wanted those to apply to. In this case, we don't have any additional sensors. Our controller setting is going to give us the different pieces there of the settings for that, and we can also configure Wi-Fi, which also can be done on the main controller. And then the last piece here is reports. So we can go in and we can see what's scheduled for watering, our actual watering history of what it actually watered for each given day. We can see our different weather pieces here. In this case, that hasn't populated yet. And then water usage is a real handy one. So the big one that I like in water usage is to see what Virtual Solar Sync is doing. And in this case, because this controller is new, it still hasn't populated that Virtual Solar Sync yet. But that data will come in here as that's set up. So those are the main pieces, and there you can drill down into some of the different reports from there. So those are these tabs over here on the left. Up at the top, and this is in different locations for Android or iPhone or those different things. But this first icon here is our manual start. So we can then manually run zones. Um, this obviously from the PC, or we can do that using kind of the remote control feature with the phone out in the field. So I can set my different zones. They'll typically default to what they're programmed to water for, but I can adjust these down as needed there. If I want to run multiple zones, I can deselect all these and I can say, just run numbers 1, 2, and 3, or I can run, 1 and 3, whatever combination. I can either run those for the normal runtime that they're set up to be programmed, or I can unselect that and I can water that for a fixed time, depending on what I want there. I can water individual programs. So if I want to water the rear drip, I can water that for what it's programmed for, or again, I can set a time there. And then this last one, zone tester, if I'm out in the field and I'm testing, I can hit play and then run through each of the valves in sequence, and that's what the zone tester does there. So that's our manual start there. Next tab is sort of our log that gives our log of our changes that have been made here. And then the next one is alerts. If we've got alerts set up, they'll be displayed here. And the same thing if there's messages there, those will populate. And then for contractors here, I've got where I can manage my my different customers in that, and then account settings for the different account settings there. So that's kind of a general overview of kind of the different tabs and settings. And again, the main place that we're going to make our changes, zones, and programs, where we see kind of everything there. And obviously, we didn't talk about we talked about editing, but if we wanted to add a program or remove a program, we can also do that there. That's a little overview of Hydrawise on a PC.